I'm going to ask you again, can someone have a uterus and not be a woman? Just say yes or no. Can they?
You actually can't make this stuff up, guys. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel, your home for independent, nonpartisan commentary and analysis on politics, media, internet culture, and more. And guys, one of the things I've been very critical over the years is the kind of ridiculous identitarian social justice ideology that started out in academia and kind of filtered through American life, and like the prioritizing of that kind of thing over actual merit and rigor and evidence and data, particularly in matters of life and death, like medical schools. And that's where we come in on today's subject, because a House committee just held a hearing that was very interesting to me. The House Education and Workforce Committee held a hearing on training activists, not physicians, the impact of DEI on medical schools. And they had before them on the committee to testify several presidents of different top medical schools, including from California and San Francisco. And they asked them about some of the crazy stuff that had infected their curriculum and education systems, even at top-tier medical schools. And it didn't go great, unfortunately. I mean, some of them you could tell were trying to distance themselves from the crazy, and some of them really weren't. And the whole thing was kind of farcical, especially to see. I mean, it was hilarious in one sense, some of this stuff, but it was also kind of disturbing on another sense. Anyway, I'm going to play you this first clip where a Republican congresswoman asks one of these medical school presidents about a really absurd thing that was apparently taught at his school. Let's watch.
Do you believe the word obesity is a slur? Is the concept of obesity used to exact violence on fat people?
What?
No.
Well, the UCLA Medical School's required first-year DEA class taught both claims in a required reading. Do you still do that?
The course has been eliminated.
Look, I'm glad that particular course has been eliminated. And the fact that UCLA's medical school had to eliminate a course that unironically suggested medical terms like obesity were slurs and only used to put down big people tells you something not great about the quality control that was happening at the universities and at the medical schools rather, and about the ideology that infected some of the professors. Because what do you mean that was ever something that ever made it into a course? That is literally contrary to everything we know about basic medicine and science about obesity as a huge health problem. And yet this trendy, woke nonsense about how fat is a slur, all bodies can be healthy, it doesn't matter, some of us are just curvy, and that's why our BMI is a 3-digit number. Like, that was supposed to just be Tumblr brain rot. And yet somehow it made its way all the way into the curriculum of medical schools, where physicians and doctors are trained. That should be a red flag moment. That should be a siren, an alarm going off. And it's great that they ended the class. Now then, the class never should have happened. And let's be clear, they only ended it after it got publicly exposed and they got tons of backlash and humiliation for it. But this kind of thing, and it's not a one-off example, should cause a very deep and honest self-reflection about these universities, about how the hell they ever got this far off track. Anyway, we'll watch this next bit here.
You said in your opening remarks that courses are grounded in biology. UCSF's required first-year DEI class taught that health is independent of size and weight. Another session of that class at UCSF taught that, quote, there is no standard definition of health or wellness. Do you agree with that claim?
I would need to understand the context in which that statement was said. It was obviously within a broader lecture. The definition of health is a complex issue based on both populations and individuals. So I think teaching our medical students, nuance is a very important issue.
Okay, nuance is one thing. Certainly, I'm open to nuance. Particularly, I agree, a lot of questions about health can be complicated, and maybe there's not just one definition of health. That's not the part that I have an issue with here. But I'm sorry, your university, your medical school, was teaching that health is independent of size and weight. That means that there's no relation between these variables. So that increased body weight, even at extreme levels, doesn't affect your health. That was being taught in your medical school. And you're like, well, I need to know the context of that statement. Girl, what's the context? There is no context in which that statement is anything other than anti-science misinformation that was being taught at your medical school. Maybe you should just be honest about that and open about that, rather than, I don't know, try to deflect and say, well, I need to understand the full context. And I do wish the congresswoman here had just asked about that bit and not kind of given him the other piece to focus on, where there, I agree, is more nuanced to like what defines health or wellness. But how? Because really in medicine, there are very few things as uncontroversial in actual research or data or literature, or as well studied as like the negative health effects of obesity. It's not a burgeoning field of contentious debate among the experts. And yet this stuff, just because of some sort of identity victim political ideology and narrative that some of these people running these institutions allowed to fester and take over, anti-reality was taught in medical schools. That's a big deal. That's not okay. We're not talking about like cringe pronoun circles at the beginning of a class or something that is, you know, annoying and dumb, but ultimately not the end of the world. We're talking about the people who are being educated to care for the health of our citizens and to make life and death decisions, being taught incorrect information about huge health crises that we are facing in this country because of political ideology. That's really, really messed up and bad. And it all plays into the broader loss of trust in public health and in the medical establishment that is leading people to make some very stupid decisions and to really take steps and not trust medicine in areas where they should. You look at things like the vitamin K shots given to newborns, right? People are starting to increasingly refuse these, even though they're very well evidenced, they're totally safe, and they help prevent very serious health consequences that could even take a baby's life, because they just have lost trust in the experts and the doctors. And that's not logical to do, to reject the things that are evidence-based and are safe and are proven. And most doctors and most pediatricians are still genuinely trying to do what's best for their patients, and still do, with the exception of a couple issues maybe, still do formulate their opinions based on evidence and research and data and science. So I'm not saying that people are right to go there and reject stuff and just blindly distrust doctors and all this stuff. But I am saying that that is a predictable consequence, descriptively, of allowing your profession and your institutions of education to be hijacked in this way, and then refusing to really explicitly draw a line in the sand and reclaim the profession from the kook. So here's this next bit where one of these medical school leaders is asked whether or not biological males can be pregnant and have children, and refuses to answer the question, essentially. Let's watch.
Can someone have a uterus but not be a woman? Because it seems like your school is promoting that ridiculous idea.
I think, again, as Dr. Hoggett has described, we're treating transgender people, but we're doing that in compliance with state and federal law.
And you do teach biology?
Yes, we do.
Yes, this is curious. So I'm going to ask you again, can someone have a uterus and not be a woman? Just say yes or no. Can they?
Again, I would need
That's what your medical school is promoting.
The gentlelady's time
Mr.
is-
Chairman, it's clear these medical schools are hiding DEI curriculum under the guise of medical access.
Gentlelady's time has expired.
Was that a trick question? Really? Really? We can't just say, no, only biological women become pregnant and have children and have a uterus. Obviously, there's very rare intersex conditions, but almost all of them are actually biologically male. This isn't good, guys. This isn't, this is not how you promote acceptance for trans people by changing, because the original origin of this question was that the Congresswoman was asking about them using the term pregnant people rather than pregnant women in a lot of their like literature or documents. That only angers people and makes them feel like you're not trustworthy, because the only people who are pregnant are biological women. We all know this. And that doesn't discount the fact that very, 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 very rarely you might have someone who is a trans man who identifies as a man who becomes pregnant. But really almost never happens, because pregnancy, if you actually had gender dysphoria and you really wished that you were male and you wanted to pass as if you are male, then one of the last things you would ever want to do is become pregnant. So that's a very, very rare occurrence that a trans man who is a biological female would even become pregnant. And then a trans woman is never going to become pregnant because they're a biological male. So what even is the trans issue here with just saying pregnant women? Because there's really not even then, only biological women can become pregnant. And so just say that fact and then say, though, we treat patients of various identities and we treat them with respect and we refer to them how they'd like to be referred. That's not controversial. That's not a hot take. That, okay, yes, if you're the president of a medical school and they ask you, can only biological women become pregnant? Say yes, only biological women. But we also, have patients with different trans identities and we try to be respectful and we refer to them how they wish to be referred. And we're just focused on helping get the best healthcare that they need, regardless of their identity. That would be a perfectly fine answer. But why do we have to play this game where you pretend you can't state obvious objective facts? And then, because what? You're afraid of crazy activists coming after you or something? And instead you just nuke your trust with normal people, which is sad, because medicine and science has so much to offer. And so much of our healthcare has made amazing strides. And people really should listen to their doctors for the most part, who do have their best interests at heart and do know a lot more about this. But when experts and leaders in the field exhibit this kind of cowardice, it hurts that, because they know the correct answer here, guys. They're smart people. They're not actually, the dudes sitting there unwilling to acknowledge the facts, know the facts. They're just afraid to say it because they have people in their institutions who are crazy ideologues who will call them bigots and create a fuss. Or they have activist groups they know will harass them if they say something like only biological women can get pregnant. What the heck is going on? That's even something you have to worry about. I found this tweet from the journalist Ben Ryan interesting. He covers these issues, and he had this to say about one of the multiple clips, because it wasn't just the one I showed you. There were multiple clips where these different leaders refused to say that only biological women get pregnant. Anyway, he wrote, Benjamin Ryan wrote, the consequences from the left of saying that men cannot get pregnant are far worse for people in this position than the blowback from conservatives that saying that men can get pregnant. These are carefully calculated positions, taken irrespective of what the person actually believes. Even taking a position like, quote, of course, by definition, only biological women can get pregnant, but there are natal women who live as men, and it is only kind to respect their wishes to observe them as such, end quote, is unacceptable according to the current mores that define transgender activism. This fact corners people, such as this man, into making absolutist statements that confound and enrage people more than if they'd taken the nuanced stance. So I think that what Ben says here is descriptively true. That is what's happening with these situations. These people are giving answers under oath before Congress that they know are not really true, or don't reflect what they in their hearts of hearts know to be correct, because they have made a calculation that as much as they might get backlash from conservatives or Republican lawmakers or whatever for these ridiculous statements, that actually dealing with the crazy trans activists is worse. And that's bleak. It's spineless and it's cowardly, because you should say the truth and let the consequences, especially when it comes to biological reality and science, as a medical professional who's sworn to do no harm, right? You are really obligated to tell the truth, even if people are going to get mad at you or cause problems for you. But beyond that, it's like you're really caving to these mobs, and then you wonder how you end up with courses that teach people that being fat is healthy and beautiful. Like, this is a real problem, guys. And we need people with a moral backbone, with some courage, with a stiff spine to be running these institutions, because otherwise you end up with the inmates running the asylum. And that's what has happened for too many years. And it's starting to, the culture has shifted. And obviously we're not in peak 2020 anymore. But the fact that we still have people dodging questions like this before Congress, who know damn well the truth, but are just too afraid to say it, shows you that this fight is not over. And that's really bleak. That is really bleak. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed if you aren't yet. Do hit the like button, and do consider becoming a channel member. In this crazy world, I try to call out insanity from across the spectrum and offer kind of a moderate, independent perspective and voice. But that's not actually the best business model. The best business model is to pander to one extreme. So if you do that, you can make millions of dollars and get millions of subscribers. But I don't do that. So I need support instead from viewers like you. Hit the join button or click the link in the pinned comment to become a channel member to support my work. I also do videos where I react to member comments and questions. So if you want to pick my brain on something or give me some feedback and have me respond to it on air, the best way to do that is by becoming a channel member and dropping your thoughts down below. Now with that, guys, we'll leave it there on this one and be back with more real soon.